about should the rich have to work too, no matter how much money they have? And it's something I've been thinking about in the last 6 months as we deal with a worker shortage, supply chain issues, mostly, not mostly, but partly from overconsumption. It makes me think, regardless of how much money you have, should you have to do something for the economy, for society, other than consume? And I'll talk about that. I want to get one point out of the way because I get into really dumb arguments with people about this. But believe it or not, regardless of what you read or see on certain news channels or certain pieces of social media that want you to believe that the whole world's coming to an end, believe it or not, there are more people becoming wealthy. The upper middle class is growing. I think it's the fastest growing segment out of all the classes. The wealthy is growing too, and if the upper middle class is growing the most, that means everything below it has to be shrinking. And if you go find a 20-year chart, this isn't opinion, this isn't emotional, this isn't what I feel. There's data to support this. If you go look at that data, the upper middle class is the fastest growing class over the last 20 years. Which means when the middle class shrank and the lower middle class slash working class, they're shrinking. That means that some of them are going down, but some of them are also going up. And I get in arguments with people about that. I'm like, how can the rich and the upper class be growing, but then you want to say that everything below it's growing too? Like if we're dealing with 100%, you would have a total more than 100. That makes sense. For the upper middle to grow, it's got to be taking from somewhere else, and that was taking from the middle class, for example. Sure, some of the other middle class went down, but many went up. So now as we move into this world where there's more people with more money, you get in a situation where in a long enough timeline, if this continues, you're going to have a whole bunch of wealthy people that are just consuming, but they're not actually producing or contributing to society, right? They're not going to be a truck driver. So there has to be a tipping point, and maybe this is where AI and robots and stuff's going to come in. I don't know. We're a ways away from that. But you get to the point to where if you got X amount of the population who doesn't work, but they're just living off of investments, and they're not out, driving trucks or producing food or making sure your electricity works and your water comes to your house. They're not working in the healthcare fields. We're not going to have enough people to actually sustain the way we live. So should everyone have to do something for society is the question. And I'm not talking about picking up papers on the side of the road, like community service. It's should you have to do something that is a contribution to society if you want to live in that society and consume. I guess that's what it comes down to. We're over consuming and we're not producing and contributing. So if we have this issue now, where are we going to be in 10 years from now? The amount of wealth generation from cryptos to real estate to everyone's making more money. Not everyone, but a lot of people are making more money. Where does that leave us if we don't have enough people working in the hospitals to drive ambulances, to be firefighters, to be police, to drive trucks, to harvest food, all these things that we need from our utilities and more? If we don't have people to do that and everyone's just consuming, then we're always going to have way more demand than supply. We're going to have supply chain crunches. If you look at where the country's at right now, could we deal with another major catastrophe? We can't even get the ports unloaded right now. Could we deal with a major weather event? Could we deal with a war? Could we deal with another outbreak? There's some food shelves are going bare. There's inventory issues with food. There's a lot of stuff going on, and that puts us in a very weak position. Does that set us up to fail 20 years from now because we don't have enough people contributing to society? But everyone is consuming or over-consuming. So I'm going to leave you with that question. Should everybody, no matter how much money you have to participate in the workforce in some way, shape, or form? What are your thoughts on that? Let me know. I'd be curious. But until then, I'm going to catch you on the next one.